Wake up and let's go to the Mindless Morning Show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mindless Morning Show. I'm here with my co-host Dakota, as always.
Yes.
And we're joined by an extra special guest, Rebecca Struzyna. I just had to ask and make sure I pronounced that correctly. It's
nice.
Really interesting last name. But you were the host. Well, you already know what you are. I'll tell the listeners. She is the host of the West London Witch. It is a podcast where she shares real stories about all things spooky, strange, mysterious, and unexplained. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you guys doing? Thanks for waking up early to do this, because obviously I'm in the UK, so we've got quite the time difference.
Yeah. So we, I think this is only our second or third actual morning show on the morning show.
Yeah, I think we've got like 3 now.
Yeah, we're on our way.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're on our way to being truthful. So where in UK are you at?
So the name of the show is obviously the West London Witch, and up to about 3 weeks ago, we did live in West London, but we've just now made the big plunge. We've left the city and we've moved down to Winchester, which is in southern England. So it's very, very close to Southampton, which is a major port town on the coast of England where like the Titanic sailed from. So we're down that way in southern England now, out in the countryside in this cute little cottage in the woods. Very befitting of a witch, I think. So
I seen the pictures on Instagram, and I didn't realize that was actually is very, very little cozy, beautiful, quaint looking, almost like a little village home in the middle of the woods.
I'd be okay with living out there for sure. It'd be nice.
Yeah,
it is super cute. We do have all the joys of country life, like frogs in our basement and lots of spiders, so many spiders, but it's a great trade-off for the quiet and the calm.
I'd be cool. I'd be cool with a spider frog war going on in my basement. Sounds fun.
Yep.
I've had to come to terms with this spider living in the bathroom, and I'm not kidding. I mean, I'm from California, so I know spiders. Like, I can deal with spiders, but this guy, he has malice in his heart. I can feel it. And we've had to come to a sort of agreement that we are both going to coexist in this house. Okay. But I really don't want to see him. I know he's there, but I don't want to see him because he is huge.
You don't want to, you don't kill spiders?
No, I can't kill them. They're just so important to the environment and to the ecosystems. And we've got lots of other, bugs that the spiders check. So I can't kill it.
You don't want to
one of those vacuum tubes, like kind of vacuum him out, let him outside. Like, all right, dude.
Well, he's figured out a way, because I have wondered, because he appears and then disappears. Ooh. And I'm like, unless he's apparating, where is he going? And I have just figured out as of yesterday, he's living like inside underneath the bathtub.
Ooh.
So.
Do you know what kind of spider it is?
A big one, a scary one. Fluffy one. It's actually fluffy. I don't want to know any more.
Fluffy one.
What?
So many more questions.
I know. Is this like a tarantula you got living under there?
Harry Potter, when they go into the woods and there's the big. That's what it's like. Yeah.
Well,
and you're just cool with sharing a bathroom with this thing? I'd be nope.
Like # country life.
So are you an actual witch?
Sure. I mean, I do identify as one. Yeah. But I think that a lot of people think that's a lot more exciting and glamorous than it really is. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen or I've never heard anyone. I imagine I would have seen some TikToks by now of witches flying on broomsticks if that was a real thing, but haven't seen it. It could be like the UFOs. You never know.
Do you classify yourself as like, are there different types of witches? Because I'm thinking like Sabrina the witch, and then like the normal witch with like the hat and the like crazy looking witches.
The Halloween witch.
Yeah.
So there are different classifications of witches. There's all sorts of different things. You've probably heard a lot of these terms, like kitchen witch or green witch or glamour witch, eclectic witch, house witch. There's all these different classifications of witches that you could put a label onto yourself for. But I don't feel the need to label myself any certain way. I think it's helpful for some people, or mainly helpful to people who you're speaking to who don't know what the heck you do or what it's all about. But no, I like I said, I think people think it's a lot more glamorous than it is, a lot more exotic than it is. It's really,
It sounds exotic to me, because like I don't really know much about it. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say the frog infestation in the basement may be helpful because it'll be easier to make like the frog's breath brew or something, you know, like a little bit of little nod there to Nightmare Before Christmas.
Before Christmas.
It's the best. So what kind of witch would you classify as, and what exactly does it entail that you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I would just call myself a little house witch if you had to ask. And basically all that means is just finding the magic in the everyday, just seeing things as positive and beautiful and being inspired by the world around you, creating a wonderful home that you can share with others, that you can be creative in, that you can be your best possible self in, and that others feel comfortable when they come to. Making every space a sacred space, and a space that you can just live your truest and most authentic life in. I think the image that you guys probably have is like someone, over their cauldron creating stews and wearing pointy hats and black clothes. And I'm not dispelling that. There are plenty of people who celebrate their lives in that way, and that's fantastic. But for me, it's more about just being the best version of yourself and being able to spread light and positivity and happiness everywhere you go.
I mean, that's a pretty solid type of witch. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like most people think witches are bad when they hear witches just because of social media, movies, and all of that. So it's a nice take on it for sure. There's
a historic and a systemic fear because you think of things like the Salem witch trials. So we're going back, 1693. There were these women that were different. And we are inherently afraid of women in general, but particularly ones that are different or who are independent or who are brave and bold. And you see that with, historic European witches as well. Women who were able to thrive without men, women who were able to, be healers or understand alchemy or science or just the world around them on a higher level, women that were educated. And so there's just, I think, inherently a fear of women that plays into the modern mythology of witchcraft. And I think that's an important thing to highlight for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely fear women. They are some very powerful beings. so I have to ask before we get any further and sidetracked, where does your last name originate from?
Poland. So my grandfather was Polish.
Okay.
So actually, we don't quite do it justice. So we pronounce it Struzyna, but that is, of course, a Western pronunciation. So after World War II, my grandfather ended up in England. After the war, he didn't want to go back to Poland because it was communist at the time. And so he tried to make himself assimilate into English culture as much as possible, which is a very, very common thing that Europeans did, because anything that didn't sound British sounded German or Germanic, which was very frightening for British people, understandably so. And so the poor guy, his name was Ginter Struzyna, and that's not a very easy name to assimilate to British culture with. So I think if you've got a proper Polish person, they'll pronounce the last name so much better than we do. And it's very lyrical and far more beautiful, but that's our kind of Western bastardization of it.
Okay. That's really cool. I can't say we've had a Polish person on before, so.
I got some Polish in me, bud.
Oh, of course you do. Well,
just throwing that out there. But
I'm gonna need you to see your 23andMe results,
dude. I'm waiting for it. I need to do it.
Oh man! So, have you successfully performed any spells?
I mean, I don't perform spells against like other people for the same reason why you don't break into people's houses and steal their television. You just don't do things to other people. Just leave other people alone. If you're talking about manifesting things or trying to put positive energy out there to receive positive energy back, gosh, I like to hope and think so. There's this saying that in the witchcraft world, and it's a Wiccan, I'm not Wiccan, but there's a Wiccan ideology that anything you put into the universe, you receive back 3 times, good or bad, right? So you've got to be really conscientious of the energy that you're spreading to this universe. So, I mean, I like to think that if you do good acts and you're good to others, then that will be reciprocated. Like I said, it's really not quite as exotic as I think other people think it is. And the show itself, the West London Witch podcast, has nothing to do with witchcraft. Not a single thing. You won't learn anything about witchcraft. You won't hear anything about witchcraft. It's merely a name. All in just a lighthearted celebration in the joy of the spooky.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm giving the wrong impression here, because the podcast, it is great. You mainly talk about all these like really crazy stories, and you have other people kind of narrate too, which kind of builds into the immersion of the podcast itself. And so why don't you tell us a little more about that?
So the podcast is a story-driven podcast. So unlike this, which is like a talk show kind of situation, there is a beginning and a middle and an end to every episode. That doesn't mean there's necessarily a resolution, but there is a super objective. There's a story arc, and they're all real stories. They're all things that happen to real people that are generous enough to come on the show and, share their time and their experiences. And when you're talking about paranormal experiences, I feel like that's a really vulnerable thing to do because lots of people get ridiculed for, having a paranormal experience, and they tell their friends and they're the weird person, or that didn't really happen, or there was surely a logical explanation. And for some things, absolutely, without a doubt. But you know what you know, and you know what you've seen, and you know what you've experienced. And the stories range from everything from haunted houses to the Queen Mary, to Ham House. That's a castle in West London. We have episodes on haunted hotels, and they're everyone just sharing their experiences. And if they're historical, I go in and I fill in the history side of things. But it kind of is this nice volley between the storyteller and myself, and we just kind of take you on this journey through their experiences. And everything is underscored with original scores written by our amazing sound engineer, Danny Cross. And so we're really, really lucky to have the show mixed and mastered in a professional studio with a professional sound engineer doing all the music for it. I'm just really, really lucky to be able to work with amazing people, and we're able to bring these stories to life.
That's super cool. How did you end up getting into all of that?
Doing the podcast?
Mm-hmm, doing the podcast. And I mean, I'm assuming you obviously have a fascination for the spooky and all of that, if you're willing to do the show and be around it. So
sure. Well, as for the interest in the paranormal, the very first episode of the show kind of touches on that. When I was 3, my parents inadvertently moved into this haunted house, and all sorts of very weird and wonderful things ensued. And long story short, we only stayed in the house for 4 months. That's how hot the activity was. Wow. And so from then, I've always just had a pretty spooky soul. And I like to think it stemmed from that, but who knows? When the pandemic hit, I teach theater and dance, and I was working full-time at home on Zoom, but I was not being artistically fulfilled at all. And I love podcasts and I love storytelling. That's what I do all day long. I love the medium of spoken word and podcasting and audiobooks and being able to kind of continue this oral tradition in a modern way. And I was desperate to do a podcast, but you got to, as you guys know, in order to do a podcast week after week after week, it's got to be something you really love and you're really interested in, and something that brings you a lot of joy. And for me, oddly enough, that was the paranormal. So I was super, super lucky. The first 5 episodes we recorded before we ever went live. And these people were so generous because it's like, come on my show. I have nothing to show you. I have nothing to prove to you. I have no way of giving you a litmus test for what this is. Just give me your stories, please, and I will honor them. And I was so lucky that I had some really brave people decide to go ahead and share their stories with me.
Awesome.
So that's how it all started. But through it, I've been able to meet so many wonderful people all over the globe, from Iceland to, England, California, Scotland, all over the place. So I feel really lucky that it's been kind of a really neat way of making the world feel a lot smaller, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the best parts of what we do, getting to interview people and just talk to all sorts of new people and hear their stories. Everyone has a story.
I've learned so much about like just the world in general from talking to so many people already too. Like there's stuff that I had no idea about, like stuff you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
I find that as well. I mean, particularly with the paranormal stuff, you typically hear about a lot of the same kind of haunted places, but I've learned about all sorts of different places that I didn't know existed, or I've learned about things I thought I knew, but I definitely did not know. For example, the Queen Mary. I'm a Californian. I have been to the Queen Mary many times. I did an episode on the Queen Mary, and through the research, I realized that I knew nothing about the Queen Mary, and what the hell had I done on my trips there? Because I did not know any of this. So there's some things that you just learn so much about that you're like, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting and fun.
That is. I mean, that's what education is all about. Learning something you didn't think you didn't know, or something like that. I forget how the quote goes.
That's something you need to learn it.
Yeah. So you said you moved in that house, you were 3 years old. Do you remember a lot of what happened in that time? Like, do you remember stuff from when you were 3? Because that's impressive if so.
No. Okay. I think I remember things because I've been told the story so many times that the idea of it has been implanted inside of me. The only thing I think I remember is my mom taking me, because I was having all these night terrors every night. From night one, we moved into the house and I said, there was evil people in the house. There was a witch in the closet. There was evil people in the room. And I was very, very scared. And it became so prolific every single night. I think I remember my mom taking me to the doctor and saying, this girl's having night terrors. She won't sleep by herself. She's falling out of the bed. Is this normal? And the doctor said, well, is there anything scary in the room? My mom was like, no, it's a normal, little girl's room. It's not scary. And the doctor said something like, well, it's probably just a phase. Like, she'll get over it. Unless you think that there's something there. And in my mind, I remember my mom being like, I think it's probably fine. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye. Because in her head, she knew that it was kind of really scary in that room. But like I said, we didn't last there very long, but it was such a big part of like my parents are both fabulous storytellers. And they told the story over and over and over and over and over again. So I think in my head, I have memories that I'm sure I don't have. But This house is in my hometown. So we used to drive by it all the time. And every time we drove by it, we're like, that's the house. That's the house. And it's this beautiful craftsman style home on the corner in downtown. And it's stunning. It's just a beautiful home.
What part of California?
So I grew up in the Central Valley in Bakersfield, which is, you know it?
I'm from Southern California.
Whereabouts are you from?
I'm from West Hills, Woodland Hills, right outside of Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
I was going to say we played soccer in Bakersfield.
You will remember it. It's nice and hot.
Yep.
I know where you're from because I went to university down in Orange County, and then I lived in Sherman Oaks before I moved to London.
Yeah, we were super close to Sherman Oaks.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
But yeah, so we drove by the house a lot, and I'm quite notorious for, I guess you could say my superpower is if I ask someone something, typically they do say yes. And I don't know if it's just because people don't know how to say no very well, but one day we're driving by the house and this woman is standing outside getting her dog and her groceries out. And I'm like, Mom, stop the car. Gotta stop the car. My mom's like, I'm not stopping the car, Becca. That's weird. I'm like, no, I need to talk to this girl. And she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know why my mother went along with this. Stop the car. I get out of the car and I'm like, hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Becca. We used to live in this house. I'd love to see it. Can I come inside, please? And this woman was like, sure. I was like, great, wonderful. Take me on a tour.
Sounds like a horror movie.
Right?
That sounds like a horror movie.
My mom always says, I've done this to a bunch of our neighbors. I am notorious for this. My mom always says, one day they're going to find me dead in a house and it's going to be like, didn't look like there was any struggle. It kind of looks like she came willingly. And it will be because I did. I love it. But she did. She took me into the house and I did remember kind of the setup of the house. But as for everything my parents remember, no, but they tell the story. So you hear it from their point of view. And it's really interesting interviewing them, what each one remembered. One of them would remember this, the other one remember that. And because, at this point it's like 25 years later. So it was really fascinating to hear their memories and how they felt about it. That's, I think, one of the most interesting things when people tell scary stories is how did you feel? How did the space make you feel? How did the experience make you feel? And would you ever want to experience it again? And on that point, my parents had very polarizing ideas of whether they'd want to go be back in that house again, which was really interesting.
So
sounds like we're going to have to get your parents on the show to tell some stories.
Right?
They're pretty captivating.
It sounds crazy, and recently you yourself had like some kind of little spooky go on with your light. I seen the Instagram photo, and you gave the little short story you were editing, and just happened sporadically, and that I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't either. So this cottage that we have found ourselves in, because it was COVID, we saw the listing photos and it was only the outside, which is on Instagram. And the house is beautiful, but it does look spooky, which spoke to me. Loved it. I love a little spookiness. But there is this question of, do you want to live in it? I mean, it's nice to look at, but do you want to live in this spooky looking house? And then we came to visit the house and the inside looked totally different than what I thought it would be. But the guy who was living in it did not want us to go because it was COVID and he wasn't comfortable with anyone viewing the house. He did not want us to go into any of the bedrooms. So we literally moved into this house without going into any of the bedrooms. We hadn't opened up any closets or anything. We hadn't taken any measurements. I mean, we essentially moved sight unseen. And my mom, of course, was like, did the house feel spooky? What did it feel like? And I mean, we were in and out in 3 minutes. So I didn't feel anything. I didn't even see half the house, for God's sakes. I don't know. So it was literally like the day we got the keys was the first day that we actually came in and walked into the bedrooms, opened up the cupboards. I mean, it was really kind of wild. And this is a big move. We've moved about an hour and 20 minutes away from London. So that's a decent move. This country's only small. So I don't know. I didn't know how I I didn't know if it would be remiss to think that this cottage that's hundreds of years old could not potentially have had some ghosts in it. I don't know. I'm sure people have died in this house. I'm sure of it. This is a very old home. That happens in England all the time. I'm sure someone died. But just because someone died somewhere doesn't mean they're haunting the joint. So, you know, anyways, we first moved in and our dog was super happy here. Super chill, super relaxed. She came up, we call this our morning room. And she came up into here and was like playing with her toys and hanging out. So I thought, well, if there is something here, they're chill. They like us. We've been doing lots of work to the house. The house needs a lot of love. It's been pretty much neglected for a really long time. So it's needed, it needs repainting throughout. It needs a lot doing to it. And I think that if there is something here, they're probably pretty happy that the house is being cared for. Mm-hmm. So I felt this house has pretty good vibes. Well, a few days ago, and I've been working up in London an awful lot, so I haven't been here much. I've been predominantly up in London, but I had the house to myself, and I was in our office in the next room over, and I was editing an episode. And because no one was home, I didn't have headphones on or anything because I was just kind of doing a rough edit. I was going through, I was trying to figure out the story and kind of the arc of it. So I'm just editing away and the sound is on loud so that the space can hear what I'm working on. And in this room, we've got 2 wall sconces either side of the computer. And they're both on and, just working away. And I'm listening to this part of the episode, and the storyteller says something to the effect of, they were doing this EVP session, and this woman called Ruth came through and said, I was the one who died in this bedroom and was buried in the basement. Now, obviously, they're not talking about my house or my basement, but the storyteller. And as soon as it says basement, the light on the right-hand side starts flickering. And both Nala, my dog, is sitting on the floor. Both of us are like, okay. And I'm thinking, don't get scared. It's okay. It's chill. But the other light was holding steady. So this light is on, fine, no worries. This one's flickering away. My next thought was, okay, is it the light bulbs? But not a week prior, I had an electrician in looking at all the lights upstairs, fixing fuses, changing out light bulbs, and giving all the electrics a clean bill of health. Because like I said, hundreds of year old house, everything's a little dodgy. So the electrics were all given a clean bill of health. And I then think, okay, I'm just going to make a little recording because just so that if it stops or starts again, I can feed back to the electrician, dude, what is this? Mm-hmm. However, I take a little quiet recording, and then I just said, is there someone here who wants to speak? And the light goes off and the light comes on. And that's when I pulled out my phone and did that recording, which is on Instagram. And basically I said something to the effect of, is there somebody here? Light comes off, light comes on. If you want to talk, turn the light off. And it does. Light goes off, light goes on. This one over here, still holding steady. And after that, I just went, ooh, I'm a little spooked out. Yeah. So I put the phone down. I pick up Nala. I don't know what that's going to do, but she is looking wide-eyed at the light, totally enthralled by it. So I pick her up and I'm holding her, and I just kind of say to the room, I'm really scared. I don't mind chatting with you, but I don't want to do it like this. So if you can stop, it wasn't the turning on and off that was scaring me. It was this like flickering that it was doing. You can see it on the video. It was just kind of doing this wavering that was really uncomfortable. Yeah. So I just kind of said, I don't mind talking to you, and I don't mind doing the light on, light off, but I don't like the flickering. Can you please make the flickering stop? And the light went off.
Oh,
just off.
Gone. I'd leave.
Out later.
So I look at Nala, and Nala looks at me, and I'm like, we're going to go for a cup of tea. So we go downstairs, and I'm not scared. I'm more like, what on God's green earth is going on here? And I come back up a few minutes later and I turn the light switch off because I didn't touch anything. I just left. Turn the light switch off and I just kind of left it off, left the room for a few minutes, came back about half an hour later. And I just said, I'm going to keep working. So I'm going to turn the light back on. And I turned the light on and it's been fine ever since. Totally fine. In fact, the room itself feels really comfortable, really warm. Nice. We always have butterflies in that room. Always. Every day I'm catching butterflies. Like I said, we've got a lot of the outdoors indoors in this house. And every day I'm catching butterflies and releasing them out every day. And they're really centered in that room, not the room below it downstairs. They don't seem to go in there, but they're always up in that room. So it almost felt like,
interesting,
on further reflection, if it was something paranormal, and I'm open to the idea that, you know, this cottage is hundreds of years old, maybe it's not, could be something totally benign. But if it was paranormal, it almost feels like I said to it, you're scaring me. I don't want to do this anymore. And it went, oh dear, I'm freaking her out. I'll just turn the light off and stop.
My bad. Let me try the butterflies now.
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like. And because the room feels so comfortable and so warm and so inviting, it's almost like it's like flooding the space with happiness, because it really, I think it felt bad that it freaked me out. So if you're here and you can hear me, I'm up to chatting, just not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the entire time you were saying the story, I'm like paying attention to the candles, like making sure.
Looking at the candles in the dresser, I'm like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, like I was like, all right, we gotta tell her to like quickly run or something. Yeah, that's insane. I myself certainly would have been out of that house. I would have stayed at a hotel. I would have just forgotten all the stuff that I moved in that house. The ghost can have it.
Forget the wife and kid. I'm out.
I think though that's really telling of how we think of the paranormal.
Right.
So I think we think that they're all scary spooks. And don't get me wrong, there are things where I'm like, I'm not messing with that. Absolutely not. I'm out of here. I'm gone. But I think there's a lot of people who are really chill with the ghosts in their house because maybe they know who they are. And there is this whole kind of thought and this theory, and I have this as well, of, you know, there are some ghosts that are maybe trapped and they want to pass over, and that's a choice that they want to make. But there are some that are like, well, I want to be here. This is my place. And what are you going to do? Like the living person evicts them? And where are you sending them to?
Right,
like where are they going? So I think if you live in a house like this, where there could possibly be someone lurking about, as long as they're not scary, and ultimately it is your house, you set the rules, then you have to kind of coexist, like you have to coexist with the spiders. You just got to figure out a way that you can all live happily.
Right. Yes,
that's true. I mean, so I got like a very miniature ghost story because I've literally only seen her 3 times in my entire life, and I've lived in this house most of my life, this very house I'm in, and it's always this little girl in a white dress, and she's always only ever in the hallway. That only the 3 times I've ever seen her, only in the hallway.
That hallway behind you, is that her?
Stop. And so basically she just stands there and then like dissipates, like just goes away. And I don't know, maybe it's always my eyes playing tricks with me, but it's been 3 times. And my wife, her grandma was like a medium. And so my wife, she can kind of like see dead people, I guess. I mean, so she says that she tries to ignore it completely. Like she hates the idea of it and all that, but she sees people or figures and things. And she had said, she's like, there was a girl in the hallway. And I was like, no. And like, I never like told her yet. And I was like, wait, what? So it was,
what was she wearing?
Yeah, it was really creepy that time. And yeah, I don't know. I've asked my grandma. Only one other family lived here prior, but she didn't know of anything that happened. So I have no idea.
Yeah,
I got
some stories too. I've seen some.
Yeah. You definitely have stories, Dakota. I mean, mine is just thankfully nothing crazy because honestly, I don't want crazy. I'm content with our very rare gatherings.
Yeah, I've seen a couple, and then I've had stuff happen a lot in our house. We had like a party house back in Colorado where I lived, and there was 4 of us that lived in the house, and we just like constantly had people over all the time. And in the basement, it was basically like, it was like 2 houses on top of each other. There was a whole nother house in the basement pretty much. But the laundry room was like a like really spooky kind of weird feeling laundry room. It was all like tiled out and gross looking. It had an oven and like random stuff inside of it. And we decided to play beer pong in there one night because we were just a bunch of out of high school college kids just trying to have a good time. And as we moved the oven and we found these like plastic container of sprinkles, and we had always joked that it was the little girl like ghost that lived there, because there was just a bunch of random, like the very first night we moved in, we had a party, and like there was a couple of like girls and females and stuff there, but none that had the really tiny handprint. And the next day we were cleaning, and this door, there was like a handprint, like literally like a quarter of the size of my hand, like on this sliding glass door, and it had shut a couple of times the night before without anybody knowing. So yeah, with a bunch of the people coming over, we always had people like messing with it, trying to talk to it. And I was always like, guys, leave it alone. Like, we're cool. All right. It lives here with us. Like, just let it chill. And, yeah. One kid decided to eat the sprinkles one night, and I had never seen somebody have like the worst night of their life. Like, he had just like a bunch of random stuff happen to him. He dropped a glass jar on carpet and it shattered, and he went to pick it up and it like immediately cut him. He went to go walk up the stairs and like hit his head as he went to go walk up the stairs. Like, it was just like bad luck for this dude. As soon as he ate it, we're like, man, you shouldn't have ate our sprinkles. Like, yeah. So we had some fun stuff at that house. And then when I was a little kid, my brother and I had seen this head outside of our window, and it was like looking outward, and it was just there, and it would just like turn and disappear. Yeah. So I've definitely seen my share. I believe in them, and I believe in kind of the way that you were talking about it, Becca, as far as like, I mean, I'm always like terrified when it happens, but you're in that moment where you're like, oh God, like, what do I do? And you're like process of thinking about it, and you're like, somebody's here, don't hurt me.
And I think sometimes the more you talk about it and whatnot, maybe they knew I was receptive. And so they were like, oh, this is my opportunity. I can chat now.
Yeah, exactly. Like they've been waiting. That doesn't mean
you're ready to chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait till I see a Pixar movie about it. That'll encourage me to talk to the ghosts and be friendly.
And I've had a couple of ones too, where I'm like dead awake thinking something's happening, and then I like finally figure out what was making the noise, and it definitely wasn't a ghost or something, and it was like the fan hitting my closet, and that's what was making the closet like move and shake. And all I hear is this like rattling noise, and I'm like
we've got that in this house. So Kyle was walking down the stairs the other night, in the middle of the night. I wasn't here, I was in London, and he walks down the stairs, and all of a sudden he hears 2 knocks after he walks down the stairs. And he said he whipped around. It was like middle of the night. And he was like, I'm not going to get scared. I'm not going to get scared. But then as he's walking back up the stairs, he hears, and he said he ran up the stairs and ran to bed. He's like, I'm so scared.
Slam the door.
I'm so scared.
Jump under the covers.
So then the next day he was like trying to debunk it, and he couldn't figure it out. And he basically came to me and he was like, we've got this knocking sound, these 2 distinct knocks, and it's right by the front door. So it almost sounds like someone's knocking on the door, ready to like come on in. And
that's creepy.
It took us about a week to figure it out. But when you walk down the very last step, it must just be the way the house settles. About 3 seconds after you get your foot off that bottom step, it does make 2 distinct knocking noises. So we have debunked that one, but I think for Kyle, home alone, late at night, I think he was probably a lot more scared than he let on.
Man. Yeah. So that house that we lived in, I hated being alone in that house. Man, that same room, the light switch in the room was one of those like really old like clicker switches. So you'd have to actually flick it, and you can hear it like from upstairs. And I can't tell you how many times I would like sit there, be in the living room playing video games, and you would just hear noises going on. And I'm like, nope, not turning around this time. Like, oh man, yeah, there was some stuff in that house that was creepy. My brother swore that the cabinets like all opened on him one night when he was making food. He went to go like down to pick up a pot and opened up and turned around, all the cabinets were open. He was like, all right, cool, and just closed them back all. It was like, dude, no.
See, that for me is a no-go. Any like poltergeist activity, because I don't feel like that's someone who's cool with being your roommate.
Well,
I feel like
that's why, because all the people kept messing with it. I was like, guys, you don't live here. Stop messing with this or take it with you. Like,
yeah, I feel like, you know, there's one thing having like someone's old grandma, like, you know, just floating around. It's another thing with having like poltergeist activity, you know, stacking your chairs up on your living room table and things like that. Like nobody needs that. That's terrifying. Yeah, I am not for that.
We'd have fans would turn on. The one in the kitchen, especially, like everybody would swear that we would never turn it on, and we'd leave and come back and the fan would be on like full blast, like we're like, yeah, it was a cool place. It was fun.
That's
nothing like really bad ever happened. It was like, yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it. Or when we got locked out in the sunroom when we were smoking hookah, that was probably the worst one. When we thought somebody was messing with us because we were like, everybody in the house was out in the sunroom. We had a sliding glass door, and I think that's what the next day. That's when we saw the handprint. So that was when it was there. We were all there. My friend left, and he went up to go leave, and we went to go to open the door, and it was shut and locked, and we were like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, how did that happen? Went around the house, let him out. Our last roommate got out of the shower and he comes to join us. And we're like, hey, make sure you don't shut the door because it somehow like locked last time. He was like, all right, left it crack. We were out there for like another hour and a half, just having a good time. All right, let's go inside. We all get up. The door's shut and locked. And we're like, dude, what? Like, nobody had gotten up or did anything. We were all like trying to figure it out. The next morning when we went to go and clean, there was those tiny handprints on the like glass door. And we were like, so yeah, we thought it was a little girl, but I don't know how a little girl ghost would have been able to jump up and open all those cabinets. So maybe there was more.
You can float, man. You don't know.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know about any of that. I try to steer clear, more so for my wife's sake and for the sake of becoming a viral YouTube video of me screaming like a little girl. So
the worst, honestly, is when your dog sees something. Like that night, man, when we moved here, and Onyx was like freaking out. I took him outside, and it was like probably like 11:30 at night, so it was pitch black. And he looks down the street to the right and just starts growling and like barking. And I'm like, dude, what is it? I mean, I'm expecting someone to come running at us because he's like not stopping. I'm like, all right, let's go inside. And I take him inside, and he just wouldn't stop. Like, he just kept looking in that same direction, like even from our house. Like, so we went to the other room back that way and we're going to bed, and he just is sitting there like in the bed, like with his like fur sticking up in his back, just staring at the corner of our wall in that same direction, just like nonstop, dude. It was freaking me out. And I went back outside with a flashlight and like looked that way and couldn't see anything. And he wouldn't stop. I had to go in the other room. And
dogs have that sixth sense.
It was Jordan woke up and she was like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. I was like, go back to sleep. Like, Onyx, let's go in the other room. It's like, yo. Yeah.
In that house that we lived in when I was 3, we had a poodle, and he had all these horrendous seizures in the house. And then when we left, the seizures stopped.
Wow.
And he and I were inseparable, and he used to sleep with me every night. And as soon as we moved into that house, he refused to go into my bedroom or even down the back hallway, just flat out refused, would not go into that portion of the house at all.
If my dog does something like that, I am listening to my dog.
Well, we were only there 4 months. My parents were not playing games. They were.
Okay, that was when you were
out.
3 still? Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
But that's why when we moved here and Nala was so chill, I'm like, okay, well, as long as she's happy, it's her world. We just all live in it. So as long as she's happy, it's fine.
Yeah, that's
for sure. So you'd mentioned you teach theater, or you do theater and dance.
Yeah, so I teach performing arts. So I teach theater and dance, primarily musical theater. So
that's awesome.
It's lovely. It's
Tell us a little bit about that. What got you into all that?
Oh, I've been doing theater since I was 5 years old. So
Okay.
I've been doing this forever. And then I went and did my bachelor's of fine arts in acting. And when I moved out to London, I was really lucky to be able to teach for an amazing private arts academy here in the city. And since then, I've been able to teach all over London, which has been lovely. So I'm really lucky to be able to make a living in the arts. It's not easy to do. So
you teach them like actual like musical plays and stuff for them to perform, or?
Yeah. So my students do a litany of different things. Mm-hmm. So they do concerts or shows. I've got kids who are now performing on the West End or who are doing television and film, who are going down the collegiate route and who are auditioning for universities or in the Brit School. So I have really talented students. I'm really lucky I get to work with amazing kids who are definitely the future of our industry. So
that's awesome.
I feel very blessed to be able to be a part of their journey into the arts. It's really fun and rewarding line of work to be in.
Yeah, that's cool. Where do you plan to take, or how far do you plan to take that? Are you going to be in movies anytime soon?
I don't know about that. I do. So I have the podcast and I have done an audiobook as well. So I think for me, I really that's one thing I love about the podcast is because I'm able to be a part of basically every element of the creative journey that each episode goes on. And I get to handcraft the stories, which is really fun, and bring people's stories to life in a thematic way and a dramatic way, which is really exciting. So for now, we're just very, very focused on the podcast and audiobooks and whatnot, but you never know.
Cool.
That's cool.
If I had my dream job, I would be like a full-time ghost hunter, but that's my dream job.
I'm not
really.
I'm not even big on paranormal, and I feel like that would be super cool to do.
I think it'd be fun, but I want to do it. So it's really funny. So the show. So there's me, and of course I believe in the paranormal. But Danny, who's our sound engineer, he is a non-believer. He doesn't believe. Kyle, who writes our theme music, he's skeptical, but he's on the fence. And Sinead, who does all of our quality control, she's a non-believer as well. So it's quite nice to work with people who are definitely not as convicted as you are, because they always bring a different viewpoint, which is nice.
Yeah, that is cool.
Because sometimes it's not ghosts, and that's okay.
Yeah. I when I was like really the first time I had saw the girl and I started getting like really scared of ghosts, I started thinking to myself like, okay, what are the things I need to know? Like, do I need to like burn sage in the house or do all this? And
what weapon do I need to keep with me?
Yeah, every sound had to be a ghost. I didn't see it. What caused the sound? It was a ghost. And then I finally like had to start thinking logically, like, okay, hold on, let me just investigate a little bit. Oh, this pencil fell. I don't know, just like something stupid, but
yeah, it's all about the investigation, man.
This is true. I mean, I'd be scared to go into a haunted house. And recently, the one podcast, Mystery Past and Present, they were at one and like the dude has like these huge scratches on his back. I was like, yeah, no, no. If a ghost can physically like cause a scratch, I don't know. Maybe it's being really nice. That's like a warning before it does something crazier. So I don't know.
I've seen the movies.
Well, I've seen some of them.
Sorry, I just heard crackling. I'm like, it's ghosts. It's just
investigation time.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen some of those shows where they're doing like the ghost hunters, and some of them talk about like how they're sitting there with such an uneasy feeling, and in their head they like have these like suicidal thoughts. Like that's a whole other level to mess with like your mental thoughts like that quick.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
You could probably argue that maybe those aren't ghosts. Maybe there's something else going on.
There's such things as demons too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have learned the difference.
I feel like those are the ones that harm, like physically, aren't they?
Yeah.
Compared to ghosts, because ghosts are just spirits. They're chilling,
Yeah.
usually. I don't know.
It's either way, spooky stuff. But I mean, hey, I hope you get that dream job of yours.
For real.
And just be careful doing it. You know, you never want them following you home and making a ghost hotel.
If you get that dream job, bring the Mindless Morning Show on, and we'll come and do some ghost hunting with you.
There you go. There you
Why are you
go.
volunteering me for this?
Dude, because you need the one person that doesn't want to do it. It makes the show that much better.
Oh no! All
When you
right.
saw this little girl in your house, was she like a full-bodied apparition, or was she like see-through? Was she like flesh and blood?
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't like I was looking at like a whole other person standing there. It was fairly translucent, but like defined enough that like you can kind of see all the different definitions of her. Like you could tell like high-rise cheekbones that she had, because it wasn't like she was super faint, but she was to a degree slightly transparent. Yeah.
Interesting.
She's like, I don't want to say anymore to freak you out.
Yeah, wait, what do you know? What does that mean? Do I need to go get a Ghostbuster vacuum now?
I think you're probably good. But I think the biggest thing is, and you guys both touched on this, is like, how do you feel in your house? And as long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters, essentially, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're freaked out by something, what is it you're freaked out by? And is there a way to rectify it? Like, I have a girlfriend who's afraid of dark windows. She doesn't like dark windows. So you put curtains up, you eliminate that, and that problem is done. It's solved. So
Yeah.
I think that as long as you can feel happy in your home, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
That's very true.
Very true. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I mean, I very much look forward to seeing if you do start doing some ghost hunting and maybe mix like theater with that. I think, I don't know, there's definitely something there, like a musical ghost hunting show.
Well, there are shows there's lots of ghost shows and
Musicals?
things like that. Well, I mean, one that pops into my head is Phantom of the Opera. I guess he's not really a ghost, but there's a show actually in the West End that's coming out called Ghost Stories, and that it uses lots of really interesting thematic elements in the theater to kind of create paranormal activity. But we love ghosts in the theater. You think of even things like Noel Coward, Blythe Spirit, and things like that. It's a common trope. I mean, think of Charles Dickens, Christmas Carol. There's ghosts in that.
Yeah.
And actually, ghost stories used to be told at Christmas time, hence why you have
The Ghost of
Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, like in the Christmas songs, they talk about, telling ghost stories in Nat King Cole's Christmas song, because we used to tell ghost stories at Christmas time. So it's not just for Halloween. You can be spooky all year round.
Yeah. See, when you said ghost hunter in theater, I went the different route, and I was like, she's going into the haunted house and like having a whole musical with the ghosts in there, like doing all this stuff, and maybe they would appreciate it, because nobody does that. They just come in hunting, trying to get answers. What if they want a musical?
They want to learn choreography and harmony. That is what they need.
Yeah.
The one ghost will be like, I got the lighting, guys. Hold on.
I got the
Check this out.
And you got some poltergeist doing set design and moving all the furniture around. We're getting very haunted mansion all of a sudden, very Disneyland.
Yeah. See, that's where my mind instantly went.
Some room-gritting ghosts.
I mean, I'd watch it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think it would help bring me around to the idea a little bit better too.
We got ghosts that way. Whatever happened to Casper?
Oh man. So go ahead, plug your podcast one more time. We'll have all the links down in the descriptions for everybody to click and be sure to follow. And and also be sure to give us your last words of wisdom.
That sounds really ominous.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said last words. Okay, so maybe like any words of wisdom.
The candles like flaring in the background. Like,
Yeah, last words of wisdom. You're leaving me alone in this haunted house and you're asking for my last words of
Oh
wisdom.
no, sorry.
Terrifying. But you can find the West London Witch podcast wherever you listen to podcasts for free. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you listen, we are there. And if you want to interact with us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the West London Witch. We're actually going to be dropping season 2 in a few days now, a few weeks or so. So it's just in time for the spooky season. So don't forget to go back, listen to season 1. You can listen to them a la carte. None of the episodes go together, so you can listen to whatever your thing is. We've got it. Haunted ships, haunted hotels, haunted houses, haunted castles, haunted caves, you name it, we've got it. And if you ever have a scary story you'd like to share, please hit me up. I would love to hear it, and I would love to feature it on the show. So you can always reach out on Facebook or Instagram, or even our email, thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com.
awesome.
And as for last words of wisdom, gosh.
No, not last words of wisdom, just words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep it now. We need to keep that spooky theme running. Gosh, I don't know. That's quite a loaded question. I think maybe my biggest thing is that we just all need to be good to one another, particularly right now where the world's kind of all topsy-turvy and upside down. Just being good and kind and loving and understanding with other people is, I don't know, so tired to say treat others the way you want to be treated. That's just so old and, I don't know, cliche. But I think particularly right now, having a little extra patience for everyone goes a long way.
It's true.
That's very,
Yeah.
very well said.
Very
Having
wise.
extra patience.
Extra patient. Yeah.
I'm saying this as the least patient person on earth. So this is definitely, this is something for myself to practice what I preach.
Wait, least patient person? Don't you have to be patient with like the spirits or anything? Like with that whole thing happening to you with the lights, you had to be patient or else you just would have got up and ran.
I think I've got patience for other people, but I don't have patience with myself. Like,
okay, there you go. Yeah. I feel
No.
that. That's fair.
I like things done yesterday. So no patience whatsoever.
Oh, shit. That's awesome.
But
Well,
thank you guys so much for having me on the show. It's so lovely to meet y'all. And
Yeah, you
absolutely.
too.
I hope you stay free of spooky things if that's not your jam.
spooky ghosts, COVID.
Now I'm interested. I'm interested to try some new things with the next ghosts.
Well, and then you just better write into the West London Witch and tell us all about it.
I will. Do you just do like scary ones or can they be scary and then funny? Because it wasn't actually scary and it was something funny.
We have a kind of a litany of different things. So we've actually got episodes that are really nice. They're about like people's loved ones coming back to visit them. We've got ones that, a paranormal investigator, Bo, she came on and she did this great story about hauntings, but then she ended with a story that it wasn't a haunting at all. It was carbon monoxide. It was a real present danger, but nothing to do with the paranormal. So, the reason why the show is about things that are all strange and mysterious and unexplained is that, like I said, it's not always ghosts. So there is room for everything.
Okay. Well, I guess I can just tell you real quick because it's probably not going to be a good story.
We want to hear.
I don't know if Josh has even heard this one too. So when I was a kid, my dad would do like Father Sundays with each of us alone because there was 4 of us, and it was my turn. And he found this museum that you got to stay overnight and do like a bunch of stuff at. So we did, and we were over there staying overnight, and everybody was in this big tour group going through, and it's pitch black. Everybody has flashlights, and we're going through this tour. And my dad and I thought it would be a great idea to go off on our own and just leave the group. And I think I was like 6 or 7 years old at this point. So I'm walking in front of my dad with the flashlight, and we're going through this exhibit, and like everything's dark, and all there is this like dim light shining on this saber-toothed tiger, and it like makes eye contact with me. And I'm like staring at it, and all of a sudden I hear this like, and I just take off running without even hesitating, leave my dad behind, find the nearest like hallway with light, and I'm like sitting there panicking, and my dad comes out of the dark like dying laughing. And I'm like like trying to catch my breath, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "The saber-toothed tiger growled at me, I don't want to die." And he's like he goes, "That wasn't a growl, I farted." Yeah, so I was like deathly terrified of my dad's fart that day.
Could you imagine if you had still been in the big tour group?
The massive group of people. There's like 10 kids running instead of just me.
Running into taxidermied wildlife. The carnage would have been fabulous.
Yeah, it would have been. It was pretty great. So I always have that little story memory of a saber-toothed tiger attacking me.
I'm sure your dad loves that you're sharing it as well.
He still thinks it's great. It's a fun memory we have. Yeah,
that's a great memory. That was funny. That was really funny.
Yeah. That was my little.
Well,
love it.
I guess that's the best way to end it off. So stay mindless, everybody.
Stay mindless, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Mindless Morning Show. We appreciate you picking us out of the many great podcasts out there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell to get notified whenever we release a new episode or bonus content. Now go enjoy the rest of your mindless day.